Our next speaker, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, became the 12th NASA Administrator in July of 2009. As Administrator, he leads the NASA team and manages its resources to advance the agency's missions and goals. He's a retired Major General of the United States Marine Corps. His 34 years with the Marine Corps included 14 years as a member of NASA's astronaut office. He's traveled to orbit 4 times aboard the space shuttle between 1986 and 1994, having commanded 2 of its missions. One of these was STS-31, the flight of Space Shuttle Discovery to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope in 1890. Let's give one more warm Juno tweet-up welcome to NASA Administrator Charles.
Let me thank you all for coming, first of all. This is a really exciting day for us down here because it gives us an opportunity to continue the pace of things that we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that for the American public, for the people of the world, we're continuing to do something on a routine basis in terms of exploration. We closed out the shuttle program in spectacular fashion last month with the landing of Atlantis back here, its new home forever. And that was great. And Juno, when we get it off today and started on its 5-month trek to our biggest neighbor in the solar system, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. How many of you know something about Juno? You all can tell me. The one thing that really, there are a lot of things that excite me about it, but one of the most important things, because we're looking at game-changing propulsion for not just for robotic spacecraft, but for ways that we can send humans to other places in the solar system. And one of the unique things about Juno is the fact that it's the first time we're going to send a satellite to one of the distant planets using solar cells. And so the technology has advanced such that we're able to do this, and I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic to get a chance to see it. Let me tell you just a couple of things, and then I'll open it up for questions. Okay, let's talk a little bit about me, and while I don't know whether I can live up to his introduction, but a couple of things you all should know as I look around at this group. I never dreamed of being where I am today. Never dreamed of becoming an astronaut. Never dreamed of flying airplanes. So I tell you that just because, some of you think you know what you want to do, and others of you don't have a clue. And that's sort of the way I was when I came out of high school in Columbia, South Carolina, quite some time ago. I knew I wanted to do one thing, and it eventually led me to the Marine Corps. I knew I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and I really battled to get into the United States Naval Academy, but I wanted to be a diver. So I wanted to be a Navy diver, and I found out when I got to the Naval Academy, back then, you couldn't do that. You couldn't come out of the Naval Academy and go into what was then called UDT, now the modern day SEALs. So I was devastated, but over my 4 years, I'd been really impressed by one officer there who happened to be an infantry officer in the Marine Corps, and I said, I want to be like him. So that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps. I found I did not like crawling around in the mud. By then I was married. My wife was not enamored with me going to a place called Vietnam and being an infantry officer. And so she convinced me that we should go to Pensacola, Florida, and I should go to flight school. And so, as usual, she was right. I took her advice. We went to Pensacola. First time I got in the airplane, I fell in love with it. And that began a succession of things that eventually brought me to the astronaut program. From never wanting to fly an airplane, never intending to be a Marine, to what I'm doing today. I was inspired to apply to the astronaut program by a gentleman I refer to as the late great Dr. Ron McNair. Ron was lost with the Challenger crew back in 1986. But Ron and I had both grown up in South Carolina, and when I got to know him, I listened to him talk about being an astronaut, and he asked me if I was going to apply for the program. I said, not in your life. And he said, why not? I said, Dad, they never picked me. He said, that's the dumbest thing I ever. He said, how do you know? How do you know unless you apply? So that's my lesson to you all. Let me see if I can answer some questions for you as while we're waiting for the launch. Yeah, back in the back. No, I'll almost.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Pat Robinson. One of the most comments I've gotten on my Twitter is people are responding to people tweeting about the tweetup is, well, isn't NASA dead now? People think because the shuttle is launching, and I've been telling them once very hey, these unmanned missions are important. Would you just comment a little bit on how unmanned missions and what the future of NASA is going to look like?
To be quite honest, you know, we have to have robotic missions. I refer to them as robotic, the unmanned missions, and I call them precursors. In order for us to send humans anywhere else in the solar system, we need to know a lot more than we know today, and that's the necessity of precursors. In November, we're going to launch MSL, the Mars Science Laboratory, from here, and that's going to help us an awful lot to learn even more about Mars than we know today. Some of you may be aware of the discovery that we announced yesterday, you know, about the water on Mars. That it actually makes it look almost like the beach, you know, here at Cocoa Beach, where we've seen water coming and going and everything. So we learn more and more about these planets as we do robotic missions. But for people who say America is leaving the space program, is leaving exploration, I would just caution them to stay tuned, because early next year, after having gone through a several-month gap of no ability to send an American spacecraft to the International Space Station, one of our two partners, either SpaceX or Orbital, will actually launch for the first time a contracted mission with supplies to the International Space Station. Not years from now, but sometime early next year. Right now, SpaceX is scheduled to fly their last demonstration flight, probably in the November-December time frame. That will then certify them to carry cargo, and they're on tap to start to fly the first of 12 flights over the next 5 years, carrying cargo to the International Space Station. Orbital Sciences will fly the first of their demo missions, we hope this fall, if not early next year, and then shortly after that, they'll fly their first for-pay cargo mission to the International Space Station. 8 of them over the next 5 years. And early next year, we're going to put a proposal on the street, or put out a request for proposals for an American company, or at least an American-led company, to come to us with their ideas on a crew-capable spacecraft. So sometime between, my guess is 2015 and 2017, you're going to see us resume carrying humans to the International Space Station and other low Earth orbit destinations on American spacecraft. So NASA is not dead. Over the next 6 months, we have an incredible array of missions that we're going to fly. Juno today, we've got something called NPP. It's a precursor for a weather satellite that we're going to fly, I think, in September, and it just goes on and on and on. So we are quite busy. I think total number of flights in which NASA is involved over the next couple of years is about 40. So I tell you, stay tuned and tell people who think NASA's not involved. If you're a human spaceflight person, you've got to remember we have been on the International Space Station continuously now for more than 10 years. We have not had a day go by when an American has not been in space on the International Space Station over the last 10 years. We have a crew that will be a new crew that will be going to the station in September, launching from Baikonur, as we have been doing since 2003 when we launched Columbia. So that you can tell your friends, flying with the Russians is not new. It is something that we have been relying on ever since we lost Columbia. We use Soyuz as a primary means to get crews to the International Space Station because we were using shuttle to take large components. So that will continue until we have American capability. But we have new crews being assigned on a routine basis to go to the International Space Station for 6-month increments. What you're going to start seeing, I think, and I say I think because I don't control how we train astronauts, but sometime in the not too distant future, you're going to see us do something a little bit different with crews who come back from the International Space Station. Instead of putting them right into rehabilitation, we're going to use that station experience as an analog for a Martian mission, take them and put them right into trying to do some things that an astronaut or a team of astronauts would do when they get to Mars. So you'll see that they don't go right into rehabilitation sometime in the next coming months or years. They'll start going into doing the kinds of activity that you would do on the surface of Mars. So we're gradually, step by step, working our way up to the capability of sending humans to Mars. We got a lot of work to do though. Need a lot of you to help us. So if you don't know what you want to do, you know, when you finish tweeting and you still have some college time left, go get an engineering degree or a science degree or a medical degree or a law degree, because we have lawyers too. I stay in trouble, and so my general counsel tries to keep me out of trouble. Hopefully I answered your question. Any over here? Yes. You got it?
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Is it Dana?
Danielle.
Dana.
I'm a science teacher, and I was just wondering what you would say to students who maybe want to have your job.
What would I say to students who want to have my job? Be careful what you ask for. That would be the first thing I said. And then I would tell them, if you really think you want to do that, focus on what you're telling them in the classroom. Seriously, you know, you're a science teacher. I would tell them, suck up every single ounce of knowledge that they can get from you. Ask you questions every single day. Don't ever leave the classroom. What's your last name? Is it Danielle? Danielle. What's your last name? Okay. And are your kids looking? Do not leave Ms. Miller's class any day without having had her answer all your questions. That's how she feels. And then the next thing I would tell them is, every once in a while, bring your mom and dad to class so that they can share with your classmates what they do. And, you know, yeah, I like that. I tell our NASA employees, it's really important for them to take their kids to school, not send them. Take them to school, and I tell them, you know, we do incredible stuff at NASA, and I want our employees to be very proud of what we do. That's civil servants and contractors. And so I encourage them to go into the schools and share with their kids and their kids' classmates what they do. Because remember when you were a kid, you didn't have a clue, more than likely. And I told you about my being inspired by people that I saw. So same thing for you all. Some of you are professionals. Go into the schools and talk to kids and tell them it's really important to study math and science. But it's also critical for them to learn how to speak and write and express themselves. And if they can learn a foreign language, that's great also. And then band and music and football, basketball, baseball, but they've got to be well-rounded. So that's what I would have, all right? I think that, yes.
We'll have to take this last question because Charlie's kindly agreed to take a picture with us all.
When you look around and see 150 people who have all gathered together, and because of Twitter and NASA's excellent public outreach, how do you feel about that?
You know, for me, I am inspired by seeing all of you. I'm not a social media person, so every time I come to something like this, I'm awed, to be quite honest. I didn't know what tweeting and Twitter and all that stuff was. You know, you hear it all the time. But to see people who come from all around, I met a young lady, and I don't think she's here, but I met a young lady several shuttle launches ago who had come for the original STS-133 launch when we scrubbed. She was from England. She stayed in the some of you know her, I know. She stayed in the United States and traveled all around because she really wanted to see a shuttle launch. And we got her an invitation to come back, you know, and I think she went with the dignitaries or something, but she finally got to see the 133 launch. You are a unique group of people, and we really appreciate that. You're unique because you're passionate, really passionate about what you do. And as Waleed said, I think the thing that he and I love about being in NASA is that we get an opportunity to share our passion with other people. Because the stuff that we do is so important. And you play such an important role in helping us get our message to people who otherwise would never know what we do or would never see how exciting this is. And hopefully when you talk to them or you write them, you can let them know how giddy you are. And, you know, because that's really important. People are really impressed when they see other people do things that seem to bring joy into their lives. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity to meet all of you. I really enjoy seeing your excitement about what you do. It's great knowing we got a teacher here who's going to help us get some more kids into science and math. Lots of teachers are. So for those of you who are teachers, thank you very, 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 very much for doing what you do. I'm a product of two teachers who spent their lives in the classroom. And for all of you, thanks very much for coming.